asked me a question: do local authorities recruit social workers? And I was surprised. The biggest recruiter of social workers in England and Wales are. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about something very important, and this is for all social work students who are coming to the end of their 100-day placement, which is the last placement before you qualify. It's end of July, beginning of August, and I know for those students who are doing the master's program, they are coming to the end of their 100-day placement. And for those students who did the degree program, they may or are about to finish their 100-day placements, or they must have finished earlier in the year. However, September to January is a big recruitment window. It's one of the windows where local authorities recruit social workers, recruit newly qualified social workers. Before I dive into the meat of the conversation, I just want to talk about something. So you see, as a social work student who is about to qualify, you must make a decision whether you want to go into statutory social work or voluntary social work. Statutory social work is where you work for the local authority or the NHS, you work for statutory organizations, or voluntary social work is where you work for voluntary organization. An example of voluntary organization is Minds. I know there are some social workers that work in mines. They are in voluntary social work. There are also some social workers who work with other charity organizations. They are doing voluntary. They're in voluntary social work, which is also good. But you, as a newly qualified, joining the industry, joining the system, you need to make a decision. Do you want to go into statutory? Do you want to go into voluntary? I have my own advice, but I'm not here to advise you. So let's say you've made up your mind you want to do statutory social work. These are the things to look out for. So for most local authorities and the NHS, they require their newly qualified social workers to go through the ASYE. ASYE simply means Access Supported Year of Employment. It's a requirement. I think Skills to Care is the organization who set up the ASYE program, and is a requirement for most local authorities in the NHS in England and Wales. Now, so if you're a newly qualified social worker, you should bear in mind, and you go into statutory social work, you should bear in mind that somehow or somewhere at some point you'll be required to do your ASYE. You're supposed to do your ASYE within 2 years of qualification. Now, at this stage in your career, or at this stage towards your qualification journey, you should have set up job alerts for the local authorities that you're interested in. Go, if you've not done that, please go and set up those job alerts and search on those local authorities that you're interested in. Search with these three keywords. Search for level one. Some local authorities call their newly qualified social workers. They put out the adverts as a level one, or they put out the adverts as a level one social worker, or they put out the adverts as newly qualified social worker, or they put up the advert as ASYE social worker. Either three of them is likely to be what the advert is crafted as. So go on those local authority websites that you're considering and search. There may not be anything available now, but put up a job advert, or put up a job alert, so that when something becomes available, you will be the first to know. I know you're busy with your placements, portfolios, and paperwork, but this is also the time to start putting together your application, bundle, your application documentation, so that when that window opens up in September or October, you're ready to apply. Many people get a job before they finish their placement. Others, like myself, I finished my placement, you know, got done with school, received award of degree, email, and everything before I got my job. But your story might be different from my own story. If you start applying on time, after that, I didn't start also applying on time. If you start applying on time, you may be luckier. it doesn't matter what time you get the job, you eventually get the job. I know it's hard now. A lot of people are crying about how hard it is to land a job, but I still believe there are still jobs for social workers, because there is still jobs for social workers. So you may also have to consider moving away from the local authority where you are now to a neighboring local authority. Of course, you have to factor in factors like, do you have a driving license? Are you driving? Can you make the journey through and flow? So let's say you've made up your mind, you're going to go into statutory social work and things like that. There's something else to look out for. Most local authorities, especially in children social care, require their social workers to join the ASYE Academy. Remember, I told you ASYE means Assess Supported Year of Employment. So most local authorities have an academy, and this academy means that they start at a particular time of the year. Some local authorities, their academy runs 3 times a year, so the local authority will recruit 3 times, will recruit newly qualified social workers 3 times a year. And as a newly qualified social worker, you were expected to start with the same time with your cohort. So you cannot just start at any time. In my local authority, we do things differently. My local authority does not have an academy, so you can start at any time. I know other local authorities like Coventry, you have to start with your cohort. So these are things you have to look out for. Make sure you can find all this information on the website. Look up, see if they've got a local authority, an ASYE academy. If they got an ASYE academy, you would usually see some websites will usually tell you what time this academy starts. I mean, some of them do February, July, and then September, or January, February, things like that. So you would know that you need to, depending on the cohort and you want to join, you know that you need to make sure that you apply for that cohort, and that God's grace, if you get employed, all your documentations come back and you're able to start and join your cohort. Do you understand? These are things to look out for. Again, you can be a and you can go through your ASYE program without going through an academy. I did not go. I'm a hospital-based social worker. I did not go. I qualified. I finished my ASYE. I didn't go through an academy. It was like a different and an individual. Of course, I had people that were in my ASYE group when I was in my ASYE, but we were not in an academy. It was an individual journey. People I met in my group, some of them were there 2-3 months before I joined, and some people met me in the group and I left them there. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So it was not like a cohort where we have to have a general graduation day or graduation month, or an estimated graduation month in that cohort. In my local authority, you start your ASYE journey whenever you start your ASYE journey. So key things to take out from this video: as a social worker student, as a social work student who is about to qualify, you need to have made that decision to say, are you going to go into voluntary or statutory social work? If you're going to statutory social work, ASYE is something that you may be required to do. In most local authorities, it's usually mandatory to complete ASYE within the first 2 years of qualifying. And if you're going to go into statutory social work, you need to make sure that the local authority you want to apply to, if they have an ASYE cohort, you need to make sure that you're applying ahead of time to meet with that ASYE cohort. I know you'll have a lot of pressures at this time, completing your portfolios and doing this and that, but also start looking at job adverts, start looking at the requirements and the documentations you need for the job that you want to go for. Another thing is, if you're still going through your placement, consider if there's an opening within where you're doing your placements, if you like the team that you are in. And if there's an opening, consider if you can apply and at least get invited for an interview. Even if you don't end up getting the job, the experience you get from that interview would help you and prepare you for the job for the next interview that you attend. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So just to round it up, I hope no one else is confused anymore about what ASYE and newly qualified social worker is, because I did this video because someone was talking to me and they were quite confused about, do local, someone asked me a question, do local authorities recruit social workers? And I was surprised. The biggest recruiter of social workers in England and Wales are local authorities. Yes, your local authority like Northamptonshire, Coventry, Birmingham, they are the biggest recruiters of social workers in England and Wales. There are private organizations who recruit to social workers, but they just stay minute. Local authorities are the biggest recruiters of social workers in England and Wales. So I hope no one else is, whoever comes across this video, I hope you will no longer be confused and ask questions such as, do local authorities recruit social workers? Because they are the biggest recruiters of social workers. Anyway, good luck on your journey towards qualifying and becoming a social worker or finding a social worker job. God bless you. Look after yourself and bye for now. Bye.